Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to do a SmackDown recap, which took place on June 6th, 2025, in Bakersfield, California. This is the go home show for Money in the Bank. And yeah, this was a pretty fun SmackDown. We see a bunch of Raw talent um, included in the Money in the Bank matches on Saturday make their way over here to SmackDown ahead of Money in the Bank. So this was a fun kind of something different. We'll maybe call this one the Seth Rollins faction invasion, as very much the reoccurring theme throughout the night is Seth Rollins and his faction getting involved. So, without further ado, let's get into the action that took place here on SmackDown. As mentioned, we kick things off with Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker, who are, of course, are joined up by Paul Heyman, making their way over to SmackDown, making sure that everyone knows who's going to be in charge of that Money in the Bank match on the men's side, at least. Seth says whoever gets in their way will be taken care of, and whoever has gotten in the way in the past has been taken care of. So essentially, business as usual. They are interrupted by Solo, JC Mateo, and Jacob Fatu of the Bloodline. Solo questions the factions' legitimacy and suggests that they are a bloodline essentially as well. And Solo runs down the comparisons of Seth's factions. Seth admires his courage for coming out here, but promises that they are legitimate. So this is a pretty fun back and forth, kind of both teams getting shots in on one another and certainly getting in their bit. I personally would love to see these factions go at it, and maybe we will. Only time will tell. We then get into kind of a segue into the next match as the Bloodline ends up staying in the ring. Seth Rollins' faction leaves. Jimmy Uso comes in from behind, gives a kick to JC Mateo, and we kick off that match. After we actually kick the match off, though, some mind games being played by JC here as he continues to kind of leave the ring, and Solo of the Bloodline kind of playing into that as well. So this match was clearly all about the numbers game and Jimmy trying to overcome those odds. Jacob ends up costing JC the match, kind of drawing his attention away from Big Jim here, and the match inadvertently as Jimmy gets the roll up pin, and we'll go ahead and put a counter on our new counter here weekly, which has matches that end in an interference and or roll up pin. So we are 1-for-1 so far. But yeah, overall this was a pretty good match. Given plenty of time, a reoccurring theme we see throughout the night as well. Matches given lots of time, and I think for me personally, with the interference and the roll up stuff, it's not as big of an issue if the matches are given time. What I don't like is we get this match advertised that really looking forward to, and the match end up lasting a couple minutes, and then we get an interference that cuts it off. So that's my biggest issue. But yeah, overall this was a pretty good match to start off SmackDown. Backstage, we see an interaction between Julia and Zelina Vega, kind of teasing that angle again. Zelina tells Julia that she worked her ass off to get to the title and what she wants, and she'll have to pry it from her dead hand. So clearly, Zelina not being intimidated by the newly acquired Julia on SmackDown. So we'll see where that goes from here. Another backstage segment, we see Jacob Fatu running into Damian Priest. Damian tells him that he envies what he's going through or he doesn't envy what he's going through with the Bloodline, in particular Solo and JC, and that he warns him that he is coming for that title though. And continuing to tease that as well. I would imagine Jacob's next opponent is going to be Damian Priest based on those back-to-back repeat segments there. Julia obviously showing signs, and we see more of that later on here. Getting into the match that kind of builds up to the U.S. title scene on the women's side, we see Piper Niven and Zelina Vega and what's called a Bakersfield Brawl. So it's essentially an Extreme Rules match. Last week we got Alba Fire and Zelina, so this week we're getting Piper and Zelina. And last week KP and I kind of said something similar, and that was either let Chelsea get the title back from Zelina or move on. It appears we're not moving on, um, and or at least quite yet, as another member of the Secret Harvest get their shot against Selena. I also noticed that the Secret Harvest were making their way down to the ring, that they were wearing some not so official glasses. I believe they were heart shaped glasses. So either this is maybe just it doesn't mean anything, or perhaps it means that the Secret Harvest are kind of turning face a bit, which is very much a possibility. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe that's just me reading too much into it, but we'll find out as we continue on. Getting into the actual match, Selena takes pretty quick advantage of the stipulation. I think she grabs the kendo stick pretty much right off the bat and gets some shots in on Piper. Piper then returns the favor with a chain, I believe, and this ends up setting up a chair for some pretty hard hitting spots here between the two. Zelina ends up reversing a couple of times when Piper tries to get the chair involved and ends up taking some pretty nasty bumps. Zelina ends up landing a code red from off the top of the ropes on Piper, which again another good spot, and that ends up going through the table. And as Zelina is about to pin Zelina, both Alba and Chelsea end up pulling Zelina out of the match. So a bit of an interference there as well. WWE found a solution though, however, because this is a no DQ match essentially. So that kind of works. That makes it not so annoying as well. So I was happy to see that, and we still get a complete match. So to counteract Chelsea and Alba, Julia ends up getting involved. She ends up hitting Piper with the kendo stick again, and then Zelina puts Piper through the table to win the match. So excuse me, the code red wasn't hit through the table earlier, but regardless, end result's the same. Piper gets hit, gets thrown through the table, and Zelina ends up getting the win. It doesn't end there though, however, because after the match, Julia comes in, is raising Zelina's hand, but then takes out Zelina, steps on her, as seen here on the video, with the U.S. title in hand. So perhaps a glimpse into the future there. Clearly, made note earlier with the backstage segment. Julia has her sights on that U.S. title. So, does Chelsea and the Secret Harvest kind of move aside for that feud, or is Chelsea going to be involved in there as well? I think Chelsea, Julia, and Zelina Vega, obviously that's very intriguing, and maybe perhaps where we're headed for SummerSlam. So that would be very interesting to see. So while we got a full match, obviously we still did get some interference, so we are going to count that. So we'll count that, put that on the counter, 2 for 2 so far in interferences and or roll-ups. Before our next match, we see a video promo from Aleister Black, who basically states he's wanting revenge without any distractions, as kind of the way LA Knight qualified for his Money in the Bank match was Aleister hit that black mask on Shinsuke, and then LA Knight came in, threw Aleister out, and got the win anyways. So basically, he wants revenge for that. He feels that he should have been the guy to, come out victorious on that night, but didn't. But so Aleister Black, LA Knight, a very nice mix of styles here for me. So I was kind of looking forward to this one. This one again got some time, so the theme continues. Every match we see here tonight gets a lot of time to shine. We get some "This is awesome" chants from the crowd, indicating another good match. And so this is a great trend so far. Lots of time for each one. And one of the issues, at least that I have, isn't with the longer matches, but it's the lack of, or isn't because of the longer shows, but it's the lack of quality matches. Based on what seemingly feels like an unlimited time slot for SmackDown, you would think that would in turn give us some better matches. But that isn't always the case. But on this night, it does end up being the case. All the matches were given plenty of time, and up until the quality of this match was great, up until we get some interference. Yes, this is 3 for 3 on the interference roll-up count. We get an interference here. Regardless, the interference of this time is from Seth and his faction, making themselves felt making their presence felt yet again. Seth comes in, stomps LA Knight, and then Alistair ends up getting a spear for his troubles. LA Knight tries to stand back up again as well, but he gets a spear as well. So, yeah, again, mentioned kind of at the beginning of the video, Seth and his faction basically taking over SmackDown, and this isn't the last we see of them tonight. But yeah, clearly that was here the statement meaning and or the statement and takeaway from this match was just that. We then get a video package of Nick Aldis and of SmackDown and Adam Pearce of Raw. They announced that after this week we're moving right along. So after the Money in the Bank, we're already advertising stuff. They announced that they're kicking off the King and the Queen of the Ring tournaments, where both the men's and the women's will each have a fatal four-way, two each for Raw and SmackDown, to determine the semifinal matchups, and then the finals for those will take place at Night of Champions. The King and Queen of the Ring will then get a title match of their choosing on SummerSlam. So this is great news. I love the turn. I love any tournament. I love the Money in the Bank kind of qualifiers. Similarly, I love the tournaments here that they build for King and Queen of the Ring. They took it away for so long. It was great to have those back, and I'm happy that we're doing that once again this year. So something to look forward to there. We then see Jade Cargill in the back stating that after that she's taking the gold after winning the Queen of the Ring tournament, and Charlotte then appears and says that there's only one queen in WWE. Tiffany Stratton then also shows up and wishes them both good luck as she makes her way down to the ring. Tiffany Stratton seen in the ring and assuring that whoever wins the Money in the Bank match won't be able to do what she did, and they will simply be trending for a couple days, and then that's it. Rhea Ripley joining the ring here, and she states that she's never been in the Money in the Bank ladder match because honestly she's never had a reason to, indicating how dominant she's been as champion. This essentially leads us to our 3 vs 3 tag match, which features all of the women of the Money in the Bank, Rhea Ripley, Stephanie Vaquer, and Alexa Bliss going up against Julia, who makes herself seen, shows up on SmackDown yet again, Roxanne Perez, and Naomi. Yeah, this was a pretty good match. Again, given some good amount of time. The main angle of this match for me was the heels kind of working pretty well to keep the faces from tagging each other. We're doing, that's always the idea of these tag matches, right? Kind of cut the ring in half, as cliche as that is. But the heels obviously did a great job of that. Up until Mommy got the hot tag here, after I would say a good 10 minutes of not getting it. The crowd were chanting, "We want Mommy," and they finally got it. We then get a pretty cool spot where each woman kind of takes down each other, as they so often do in these kind of matches. Everyone kind of gets their shot in, and this is preceded by some more. This is awesome chants from the crowd. And to be expected, as Roxy goes for a tag on Naomi, we finally see the crack in the heels team. Naomi just simply dips and says, "Your problem now." Roxy obviously not expecting that, then ends up getting beat by Alexa, Vaquer, and Ripley to eat the pin before Money in the Bank. So, Roxy gets hung out to dry here, but a pretty good match, and a match without interference, the first of the night. So happy as always to see that. We then see Solo and JC in the back, and they're saying that with Jacob and JC in his corner, Solo has no doubts that he's going to win that Money in the Bank briefcase. It's as good as his. JC not as confident, as he doesn't feel Jacob is an ally as much as he thinks. Solo reassures JC and tells him, "Don't worry about Jacob. He ain't all there, No gas, no brains." That was a great line, by the way. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Solo is absolutely killing it with these comedic angles. But, of course, as we so often see, as JC and Solo walk away, Jacob then rounds the corner, clearly having heard what Solo just said. So, continuing the tension there between Jacob and Solo. Again, can't wait for that one to culminate. We then get an Uncle Howdy promo. So KP and I kind of talked about this in the week past. It's great to see Wyatt Six back. What are they doing here? This one kind of hits to that. Kind of, at least acknowledges something, I guess we can say that. He says he's going to test the loyalty of this coveted SmackDown division, and we then see all the teams of SmackDown in the back kind of reuniting in the same room and saying that they need to work together to take out the Wyatt Six. So everyone's clearly intimidated by the Wyatt Six. They're clearly going after the tag team division. So we'll be interested to see how that ends up unfolding. Earlier in the night, we see Chad Gable sitting in the back and stating that he's very confident going into the AAA for the AAA Mega Championship match with Vikingo at Worlds Collide. Andrade comes up and starts talking to him in Spanish. Chad Gable, clearly not knowing what he's saying, simply responds with yes. Then Penta comes up, starts speaking Spanish as well. This kind of confrontation here ends up being a match made by Nick Aldis and Penta. Which features Penta and Andrade versus the Creed brothers of American Made. So getting into that match next. First things first, Andrade and Penta as a team I never knew I needed. They worked really well together and started off by attacking the Creed brothers before the match even begins. But yeah, this is pretty evenly matched contest between the two. Both teams kind of getting their time to shine. And Chad Gable comes in and tries to interfere, but he is cut off by Vikingo, who was at ringside. Andrade shortly after that takes care of the Creed brothers, and Penta hits the Mexican Destroyer for the win. As much as I hate to see the Creed brothers take another loss, I love this team of Andrade and Penta. Maybe more on that in the future. But this victory is very short-lived as Seth's faction yet again makes their way down to the ring. Andrade and Penta do their best to hold them off, but as we've seen so many times over the past month, their efforts are futile, end up eating some spears, stomps, and tsunamis for their troubles. As Seth's faction is standing tall here, they are interrupted by Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, and they are quickly followed up by Cena and Logan Paul. Logan Paul sneaks in behind Jay, takes him out. Logan then goes after Cody, and he avoids his punch there, and looks like he's going to give Crossroads to Paul. Cena ends up taking him out with a title shot. Cena then says to take a good look at this scene here of Logan and Cena, because no one is coming to save you, you being the WWE Universe. Cena then says he's going to take this title home, and Logan's going to take the World Heavyweight Championship to the top. So SmackDown ends with John and Logan standing tall, and Cena telling the crowd they're hypocrites and they can't stand the truth in response to the "We Want Truth" chants that we've been hearing over the last week or so. So quite the powerful scene there between that and Seth's faction. This was very much a taking over SmackDown. This was very much a heel SmackDown, it felt like. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this episode of SmackDown. You could maybe argue that you didn't want to see Seth's faction that much, but I think it was effective in that this faction is clearly going to be an issue going forward. But yeah, it was a fun episode of SmackDown where we saw a lot of talent from Raw making their presence felt, and lots of appearances by the Money in the Bank competitors, and some really good matches as well. So I really enjoyed this episode, especially for a go-home show. But just on its own, it was a good SmackDown, I felt like. So I ended up giving this one an 8.5 out of 10. This episode really kept my attention throughout. So with that, this has been another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. And we will be back shortly with a Worlds Collide reaction and a Money in the Bank reactions. So until next time, take care.